I hope we all know that. I hope you all know that I'm getting stronger and I'm getting older. Well, welcome all everybody to another Gala Alliance meeting. We'll hold it down. Can you hear me now? Now? Okay, how about now? Oh, thank God. You know, you take away my voice, I wouldn't know what to do. Okay, we all right, please? We're going to salute our flag. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for 1 minute while we think about what happened to the school department and think about how terrible it is and how bad they're treating us with guns. So please. Thank you. I will say one thing about that before we go on with the program. The students of that school have done us proud. But they've organized and they're working on it and they're speaking up. It shows that we have some hope in the next generation. Okay. Honey, Kat, will you introduce the speaker? Are you here, honey? Where are you? Yes. Yes. I got it.
Oh yeah, I like your gloves.
Figure it out.
I'd like to introduce all the dignitaries and guests that we have this morning. Please hold your applause till the end. Alexis Andres, Community Relations, Florida Sugar League. Lieutenant Lori Puff, PBSO. Steve Kiffin, PBSO. Kimberly Hyde, Palm Beach County Fire. Jeff Galisi, Palm Beach Sheriff's Office. Jenny Caesar, pardon me. Congresswoman Lois Frankel's office. Sarah also from Director of Community Relations, G.L. Holmes. Linda Posniak, Vesta, Kings Point. Shelley Shams, Green K. Brittany Underwood, Director of Resource Development. Rosemary Raymond, Lake Worth Drainage District. Diane Johnson, Executive Administrator, Clerk and Controller's Office. Evelyn Belarte, Palm Beach County Property Appraiser's Office. Gabby Ferrero, Palm Beach County Tax Collector's Office. Maxine Cheeseman, candidate for Circuit Court. Megan White, Commissioner Mary Lou Berger's Office. Ed Saul, Deputy Secretary, Representative Emily Schlossberg's Office. Derek Schwartz, candidate for Congress, District 21. Michael McAuliffe, candidate for Circuit Judge, Group 13. Quinn Johnson, candidate for Circuit Judge, Group 25. Dana Ackerman White, Senior Aide to Palm Beach County Commissioner Dane Turner. Timothy Bean, Manager, Palm Beach County VA. Lloyd Cormier, Circuit Court County Judge, District 4, candidate. Jessica Metzer, Senior Senator Rader's Office. Terry Mitzi, Senator Brusso's Office. And Leslie Schreiber, Sheriff Bradshaw's Office. Thank you.
Okay, well, we're going to call on Chief Hood. Come on, Chief. who's going to give us an update on what's going on in the community.
Thank you. Good morning. As usual, I'm happy to be here and see all your faces. I know it's early, but I gotta say that here at Fire Rescue, we've already started talking about hurricane season. So remember that our success comes from early preparation and planning. So that will be the topic in the next couple of months as we move forward and preparing for that. I also want to bring up that on the 17th is our St. Patty's Day Parade down at Del Rey. I know that the Lions will be there, be represented. It may be the last year that Fire Rescue is involved in that event, so this year will be a big thing for us.
Why?
I'm not totally in the loop on that side of things. I will find out more information, but I'm sure that the guys that put that on are a nonprofit organization, so who knows about the fees and funding and that kind of stuff that goes on. So I'm sure that has to do with Del Rey and the nonprofit organization that handles that event. So, but we encourage everybody to come out and enjoy that with us. And I want to say that this past month, we did come down just under the 3,000 calls a month mark. So even though we're still in season, it looks like we had a little bit of a break by a couple hundred calls. So we're here with you guys, and we look forward to talking to you again next month. And come on out and see us in the St. Patty's Day Parade.
Thank you, Chief. Lieutenant, come on. I'm trying to find your name here. Here you go, Lieutenant Frank. Fine, right?
You got it, Stan. Thanks for waking me up this morning. There's a couple things I wanted to talk about that we're experiencing. And one of them is a bank card scam. So I need your help here to spread the word to people. If you get a call from a bank, it's usually a female will call. How's that? Is that better? Okay. I don't want to be as loud as Stan was earlier. What's happening with the scam is a female calls from a bank. As an example, I'm from Bank of America. There's a problem with your debit card. It's been compromised. I need to come by and get it from you so I can get you a different one. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never had that kind of service from a bank. So, but some people, unfortunately, and really they're targeting our seniors. And what will happen, it has happened a couple times where someone will show up, they take the card, and what happens? There's a few thousand missing now from the account. So I need your help spreading that word that scam is going around to your friends and your developments. I'm seeing a lot of it lately. Another thing, over the last month we had a lot of stolen vehicles. And I know I'm going to sound like a broken record. But high-end developments, like the Oaks, St. Andrews, Bridges, Bellagio, Stone Creek Ranch, all these places have experienced stolen vehicles. And what's happening is there is a group coming up from the south. They're getting to these developments. Either they piggyback a resident going in, maybe by foot. Usually they go in with a car that's stolen, and they're taking Mercedes, Range Rovers, attempt on a Ferrari, Bentleys, you name it, all high-end. And how are they getting them so easy? The key fobs are in the car. Please spread the word on that. Stop leaving the key fob in the car. They just get in, start it, and leave. So, and that happened a lot last month in February. Now I was going to say everything was going great this month. We haven't had that problem. And then last night, it happened in the Oaks again. They tried to steal a Cadillac Escalade. Fortunately, security did see them leaving. They were able to track it using OnStar in Miami. So it's still happening. There's another group. One group has been caught by our task force, but there's still another group out there. So please spread that word for us Do not leave your key fob in your car. I know it's very simple and it's easy. It's great to get in and push the button and go. I get it. But you got to take that key fob out because that's how they're getting in there. Car's unlocked, key fob, goodbye. All right, so those are really the big things that we need your help on, spreading the word, if you could do that. And other than that, everything's going pretty well here in District 4. Thank you very much.
We're honored today to have Dave Kerner here. He wants to say a few words. Dave?
What?
Everybody welcome Dave.
Stay on.
Keep moving.
That's all right.
County Commissioner
Thank
Dave
you very
Kerner.
much. Thank you, Mr. Schulbaum. My name's Dave Kerner. Good morning, Delray Alliance. How are we doing today?
You're on, you're on. I think it's, you can use this one, but I think it's
Morning. Good morning. Got some energy in this room, right? My name's Dave Kerner. I have the honor of serving as one of 7 county commissioners here in Palm Beach County. I'm here on behalf of my dear friend, and I know she's your dear friend as well, Mary Lynn Berger. She's in Washington right now with some of the other county commissioners. They're working on some federal issues. I just wanted to come by and say, first of all, thank you for what you do. I represent the West Boynton area. We have a lot of COBRA in my area, but you know, I feel so close to this group, and I can tell you the work that you do, the advice, the recommendations that you give is very, very impactful, both on me and the rest of the Board of County Commissioners. So please recognize that the important work that you do is impacting the future of this county, and it really goes a long way. So thank you for that. The other issue that I wanted to talk briefly about, and I think Mr. Schulbaum talked about this, about guns. Prior to my election to the County Commission, I served in the Florida House of Representatives. And before that, I served as a police officer as well. And I can tell you that over the last 10, 15 years, the amount of bad legislation that has gone through Tallahassee related to guns is an abomination. I spent 4 years, there's nothing to be thanked about, but I spent 4 years as the ranking member on the Judiciary Committee, and I had the honor during that time to be able to fight back against the NRA. And I carried a gun on as a police officer, we all know that. But what I see happening now, my grandfather was a teacher for the UFT in New York City for 40 years. He is no longer with us today, but if he saw the way that this state is responding to school violence and school shootings, he would be disgusted. We also know that as county commissioners, we no longer have the power to regulate firearms or weapons of any kind at the local level. So it's very important that we continue to advocate for common sense reforms. And I know that there's a wide array of opinions about how we should respond to this and how we should respond to gun violence in general. But I think what we can all agree about in this room is that the conversation has to be had, and it has to be a meaningful one. And so as we continue to move forward, I become more concerned, maybe not surprised, but certainly more concerned about the response that's happening in Tallahassee. Most recently, the bright idea of arming our school teachers passed the House of Representatives and the Senate. That's not an effective reform. And so I would just ask that you have children, you have grandchildren, you have friends and family that will continue to go through our public school system, which I think is an excellent public school system, and that we have an obligation to continue to work with the Representative Abruzos and the Emily Schlossbergs, and I saw Senator Sachs is here, it's great to see you, Senator. We need to continue to advocate for common sense gun reform. It's something that I'm very passionate about. It's not about taking guns away, it's about making sure that the wrong people don't access them, and I appreciate the advocacy that you provide. My name is Dave Kerner, it's an honor to represent you, and thank you for having me here today.
Karen, Bill. Karen is on the school board representing our district. Karen?
Thank
Thank you, and thank you to Commissioner Kerner because it was a great segue into my conversation. So good morning, Delray Alliance. I'm Karen Brill. I'm one of your school board members. Now typically, the school board is really a happy, easy place where, well not so easy, but where we're educating our children and everything's positive. Well, today is very stressful. We will be appointing our next superintendent at this afternoon's meeting. But, so that's a big task. We've got 3 internal candidates. Wait, I'm gonna step down here so that you can see me a little bit better. But I have to tell you that the conversation for us as a school board has really been focused upon the craziness of arming our teachers. It's absolutely insane, and I know I speak on behalf of the entire school board, and my daughter who's a teacher who said, Mom, they don't give us enough pencils to get through the first week of school. They're gonna give me a gun and a vest? I mean, how crazy is that? It's nuts. So I will tell you that we're starting our day. We have a 1-hour private session on our security. We have the most fabulous school police force. They are mentors to our children. We've asked the governor to provide more money for mental health counseling, as well as so that we can have more officers in our schools who act as mentors. They are trained for active shooters. I can assure you that our school police, if God forbid anything happened, would be actively engaged and would run in. I can see by just what they do every day. You know, our conversations are about making sure that all of our schools are secure and that we have counselors available. And finally, I have to tell you, these students in Parkland and the students in Palm Beach County and all over the United States, how they've taken a tragedy and made it into a civics lesson and have grown from it and are actively engaged in changing the way our country looks at security, our schools, mental health. I have to tell you, I'm very proud. They've been very eloquent in their conversations. They have taken this to another level, and I'm happy that our school board is joining in with all of them in the conversation so that we can make change not only here in the state of Florida, but throughout the United States. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Karen. Okay. On your table, you'll find these. It's going to be the biggest expo that we probably had in years here in Palm Beach County or in Delray Beach. The Alliance is partnered with Nostalgia Magazine. It's going to be a real fun thing. There's going to be great prizes. One of the vendors is giving out a 60-inch television set. And more than that, there'll be popcorn, there'll be pinball, there'll be picture taking, there'll be a whole bunch of stuff. We have many of these flyers here. We'd like you to take some, or we'll bring some to you at the table now if you want it, and take it home to your community and have them come to enjoy themselves and help spread the word about the Alliance and Nostalgia Magazine. So anybody who wants to speak to us about that, please do. Okay.
Also, Bob, if you raise your hand, right now, we have our board members, we'll go around and give you about 10 cards each. If you'd like to bring them back to your community, that would be great. You can raise your hand now, we'll just go around.
Okay. John? All right, we'll move on with the, with our, good morning. This breakfast or this meeting today, sponsored by CSI. Pamela Avalos is here, she speaks for them. We want to give her a nice welcome. We thank her for serving breakfast here. We worked all night preparing it. Come on.
Good morning. Thank you this morning. I'm Pam Avalos. I'm the area director with CSI Caregiver Services. We offer in-home private duty home care, but more importantly, because there are so many home care companies out there, there were a couple points I wanted to make sure that I got across this morning that everyone was aware of. And a couple of those things was private duty home care does not mean that you're sick at home and, you know, this is the end. Many clients that get private duty home care are the ones that don't want to have to deal with that light cleaning and the laundry and the linen change anymore. Or maybe they can't drive anymore, but they want to continue their quality of life. So I would suggest when the time is right, and not when the storm hits and you need a home care company, to make sure that you ask those questions. Another big thing that's really important is finding out if those companies have minimums. It should be what you need and what you want, not what the company wants. And I can vouch for ourselves here at my company, we have 1-hour visits, which for a lot of people is more than enough time to help with the activities of daily living. I also wanted to bring up today that we are really big supporters of educating this community. I am the chair for the Alzheimer's Walk for West Palm this year for 2018, and we're big on education. So we go into your communities and offer free lunch and learn lectures on different presentations that is offered by the Alzheimer's Association. So I wanted to make sure everyone here knew that today. A little education goes a long way. I do have my information in the back for those of you that might be interested in speaking with me upon your leaving, and I thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Pamela. We have one little more business. Last month and the month before, I spoke about the election for candidates for the board of the Alliance. There were no applications, and so the following existing candidates or board members are re-elected. It's me, Rory Vinegar, Arnie Katz, Norma, Susie, and Phyllis Levine. So we thank you all for your confidence in giving us another term, and we appreciate it. Okay, now I'll go to the part that you're all waiting for. I'm going to introduce our Executive Vice President, and she's going to tell you about the speakers. And so here you go, Lori.
Okay. Yes, this is going to be a great meeting here with lots and lots of information that we can really use. Such important information such as tax exemptions and ways we have tax advantages for associations. As you know, you receive this, and it's also sent by email. And every month we give you the most updated site plans and all. Here's one for the car wash on Jog Road. A lot of information about the widening of Lyons Road. That's also on here, and the timeline for that. And we have been working constantly on the widening of Atlantic Avenue, and I was just up in Palm Beach Gardens 2 weeks ago speaking to the planning agency, transportation planning agency of Palm Beach County, and they actually did state that they are moving it and they're expediting it. So coming this October, September, October is when they put out their budget and they put out their timeline. We should be seeing a new timeline, less than 2024 plus. We can maybe have a more definitive date of it being a little earlier for our Atlantic Avenue. I brought with me the letter that was sent to the Alliance last month from Lake Worth Drainage District directly to the Alliance saying that they are working, we want to work with us and cooperate with all the stakeholders to hasten the widening of and expediting the widening of Atlantic Avenue, especially between Jog and the Turnpike, and of course out west too.
Lori?
Yes?
Where do we get the paper information that you just talked about? It's not in our...
Yes, well, if you are a delegate or an alternate or the president and you're on our mailing list, you receive this hard copy, and if your association is changing directors right now, there's new boards, we get new updated lists. If you're not on it and there's an issue there and you're not receiving it, just let me know after the meeting and we will straighten that out. Send me an email. You know my email, or just reply to the Alliance of Delray. We'll get that to you. And you don't ever have to worry, because even if you don't get this by regular mail, it goes on our email list to our network. It gets sent out. And you can download it and print it all out. It's right there, and it specifically says the pages of the newsletter, and it's also on our website. So and I can direct you to that. Any questions, you can always contact me by phone or email. Okay. now we remember we had the most updated information, and we really do, and we put out last week, a whole explanation of what's happening at 441 and Atlantic with the new Wawa coming and the site plan, and Joseph's Gourmet Market, Joseph's Classic Market it's called, is coming to the corner of Lyons and Atlantic, and there was a site plan for that. All that went out last week on the email list to our network. If you want to be on that, if you're not on it yet, send me your email, give it to me after, and you'll be on that list. But all that was out, and they haven't even put the site plan up on the actual physical pieces of property yet. But it came to the Alliance because they know who to come to first to get it out to the people. Today, we have Dorothy Jacks beginning our program. She is our Palm Beach County Property Appraiser, and she was elected in 2016, of course, after a 28-year career in the office. So really homegrown here she is. She's a certified Florida appraiser and assessment administration specialist, which is the highest professional designation in Florida and one of the highest international designations for someone who holds the office of property appraiser. She's going to tell us all about our exemptions that are available. Please help me welcome Dorothy Jacks.
Thank you, Lori, and thank you, both of you, for having me here. It's so nice to see so many friendly faces and so many of our neighbors here in Palm Beach County. I'm going to cover a lot of information today about homestead exemption, but I also want to tell you that I'll be here afterward, and I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have about property taxes or even about your property values, certainly. So the property appraiser has three main responsibilities: valuing property for tax purposes, administering exemptions, which is what we're going to talk about today, but we also manage the county base map. In other words, we identify where property is located and who owns it. So all of that information is available to you, all very accessible through our website and so forth. But I do want to spend my time today talking about additional exemptions. I'd like to ask, how many of you in the room have a homestead exemption, a homestead property tax exemption? Wonderful, good, most of you. But what is not as well known is how many additional exemptions there are which you can apply for beyond the homestead. And that's sort of what we're going to talk about. But first we're going to talk about a tiny little bit about homestead, only because all of the additional exemptions, all of them, require that you initially have a homestead. And of course a homestead is very straightforward. It's a benefit reserved for Florida residents who make their home in Florida their primary home. You can own a second home, you just simply cannot have two primary homes. One of them you have to designate as your primary residence, and if Florida is the one that you designate, then you are eligible to receive the homestead exemption. Of course, it's up to a $50,000 reduction in your assessed value, and after the first year, residents who have a homestead are capped at the amount their value can increase each year. This is a very nice benefit, especially in an appreciating market. So in other words, if you're not homesteaded, you don't have the cap. You actually have a different, distinct cap, which is a 10% cap. But if you're homesteaded, you have this nice benefit of that your value, as long as you remain there, is going to stay fairly equal and go up ever so slightly each year. Applying for homestead is very straightforward. You have to own and occupy by January 1st of each year, make that home your primary residence, and you have to be a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident in order to qualify if you're not a U.S. citizen. I basically listed here some information. I know it's quite small, but we'll get you this information afterward. But just talking about that you need a valid Florida license or Florida ID card. You need to have your cars registered in Florida. If you vote, you need to be voting from your homesteaded address. That's very important. We actually validate that against the supervisor of elections information, and that is one of the requirements in the statute. And you also, if you own property in another state or in another county in Florida, you have to make sure you have given up any benefit you had at that property before you get homestead. So homestead exemption, how much is it worth? Initially, it's worth a $25,000 reduction on your entire ad valorem tax bill, and that's worth about $500. The second $25,000 was approved probably, in 2008, and that reduces all the tax levies except for the school board. So the school board remains, which is why the second homestead is actually only worth about $250. There is going to be on the November ballot a third homestead proposed. That homestead would be like the second one. It would only be on all taxes except the schools. So keep in mind when you're filing initially for homestead exemption that you aren't going to receive a check for $50,000 and as put together by my wonderful staff. So don't book a cruise, right? You're looking at about a $750 savings. The real savings from homestead comes from that cap, which is the big benefit. Before I go much further, I do want to introduce some of my staff who are with me, who are going to stay here afterward to answer your personal questions about these additional exemptions. Tim Bean, our manager of our exemptions department downtown, is here. Along with him, Evelyn Bellarte from our South County office. Both of them are exemptions experts, and they're going to be sitting in the back of the room and there to answer your personal questions about the additional exemptions. So I mentioned earlier that there are a number of additional exemptions. The list is so long that it looks kind of small. I hope everybody can read it. And I'm not going to go through it here because all of these I'm about to go through. Now, I'm going to move through some of them pretty quickly because we have limited time. But I want to make sure everyone received one of these brochures from my staff. And you can pull it out because it's kind of a cheat sheet to help you along as we go over this. Did anybody not receive it? We're going to come around and give them to you. If you didn't, just put your hand up and we'll make good. There's a few people here. Keep your hand up so we can keep you in mind. But it's kind of a little cheat sheet because when this starts to get small, you can look at the brochure. So let's start with the sort of quick and simple additional exemptions. The first one being the widower. Unfortunately, it's the one that the most people qualify for, which is too bad, but there is a small additional exemption by providing a copy of your spouse's death certificate. You receive a $500 exemption. Now that is not $500 tax dollars, that's simply the assessed value reduction. So you can see there that the savings of approximately $8 to $10 a year. All you need to do, should you sadly lose your spouse, is come into our office with a copy of your death certificate, or you can fax it to us or mail us a copy of it. We don't need an original, and we will process you for this benefit. Everyone always says, gosh, it's not worth very much, $8 to $10. The way I figure it, you should apply for everything you're qualified for, because who knows, one day they might raise it, right? You don't want to miss out on it if they raise it. So if you're qualified for this, now of course if you remarry, you don't get it anymore. You need to make sure you tell us that too. So the civilian disability. So if you are disabled and a civilian, and there's a distinction here because we're going to start talking about veterans benefits next, and you've been deemed disabled by any of these agencies, again there's a $500 exemption, savings of $8 to $10 a year. So that's civilian disabled. There are some more advanced civilian disability exemptions which you may know someone that qualifies for. If you are a quadriplegic, and you can verify that, there is no income requirement on this. In other words, you can be wealthy or not wealthy, big house, small house, it doesn't matter. You can qualify for a complete exemption from ad valorem taxes if you're a quadriplegic. Now, when I say ad valorem taxes, let's just quickly talk about the distinction. Ad valorem are all the taxes based on millage times value. So they're the value-based taxes. Non-ad valorem taxes are rates taxes, such as the Solid Waste Authority Lake Worth Drainage District, numerous other drainage districts. And actually on your bill, these are separated from one from the other. No one gets exempted from the non-ad valorem assessments. Okay, we all pay those regardless. But the ad valorem, based on value, ad valorem is Latin for based on value. Ad valorem is the big money, the big chunk of your taxes. So going on, civilian disabilities, if you are a paraplegic, hemiplegic, or legally blind, and you need to use a wheelchair for mobility, there is also an exemption. This also can save you on your ad valorem taxes, but there is an income limitation. So this is for people who are low income, but have one of these paraplegic, hemiplegic, legally blind, or use a wheelchair for mobility. Again, like I mentioned, we're going to get into some, I don't want to get too much into the weeds here. All of these, again, are listed on the brochure, and if you know somebody or you yourself think you might qualify afterwards, you can come to the back and we can talk specifically about your possible application for these. Let's start talking about veterans. There's a number of very nice veterans benefits in Florida. Let me begin by saying, because it's the question that's most commonly asked, there is no blanket exemption that's applied to somebody who simply is a veteran. So my husband is a veteran. He served for 3 years in the Army. He didn't see active duty, but he is obviously classified as a veteran. He's not qualified for any of these veterans benefits. Tim Bean, our manager who's here with you today, he's a veteran of the U.S. Navy, same thing. But if you have there are a number of benefits if you have disabilities and as a veteran. So this first one is just simply called the Disabled Military Veteran. We give you the statute citation. But these are, again, people who are permanent residents of Florida. You have to have qualified for homestead. The first one is you can have a $5,000 exemption, which is worth a little bit more. It's worth about $100 in taxes. And your disability rating is from 10 to 100%. If you are a total and permanently disabled veteran, then you can actually get an exemption and not pay any ad valorem property taxes if you're 100% total and permanent. Okay, so the first one, about $100 a year, somebody who's 10 to 99% disabled, and then the second is totally and permanently disabled. Again, veterans. There is no age restriction on this, so anybody, young, old, as long as they're a veteran, they have disabilities, they can qualify for these. The next is that those same benefits will carry through to a surviving spouse. Okay, so if you are the spouse of a veteran, you can also potentially receive these benefits. It's important that the veteran was a resident of Florida as of January 1st of the year they passed away. Okay, so I know a lot of us, well, not myself, but many of us in this community have moved here from somewhere else, and possibly you lost your spouse before you moved, you wouldn't qualify. But if your spouse was here with you and they passed away and they're qualified, then their benefit can pass through to you. Again, these benefits go away if you remarry, very important. It also, the other nice thing though, is if you move from house to house, the benefit follows you. So if you're the surviving spouse, again qualified for these, and you decide you want to move to another area of Florida, the benefit can go with you, which is a nice plus. So those are surviving spouses of disabled veterans. Now we're going to talk about combat related. So now we're getting into just a little distinction on the discussion of disabled veterans. And these are combat related. This was voted into office, actually, I think also in 2008. And the restriction here is this classification, you have to be 65 or older to qualify. So, if you were honorably discharged, age 65, and your disability is combat related, as long as the VA clarifies, gives us that information, you can get a discount on your taxes equal to the percentage of your disability. So if you have been deemed combat-related 60% disabled, you would get a 60% exemption. Okay, 60%, actually it's a reduction in your taxes, but a 60% reduction. Okay, so that again is one step further, combat-related and age 65 or older. And again, like I said, there's a lot of information here, so I want to make sure you have the brochure and you come and ask us questions afterward. Deployed military service. This is a relatively recent benefit. It came back in the 2000s when we were involved in a number of different conflicts. I know that's very small blue language, but basically what it's telling you is the conflicts which qualify for this benefit. This is for people who are deployed now. So if you are deployed in any of these active locations or active operations, you and your family, your spouse, your kids are here home in West Palm Beach and living in your home, as long as you're a Florida resident homesteaded, the year that you were deployed, let's say you were deployed for 9 months. The next year, you would get 9 months of no tax. Okay? So in other words, there is an equal relationship between the time you were deployed into the next year, you get a reduction in your taxes based on that 9 months. In other words, you get a 9-month respite from taxes. We work all that math out for you, but basically that's just to explain what that means. So, in fact, it says there the number of days you were deployed. And again, this list gets updated every year. It gets updated with new deployment operations. So we simply, anybody you might know in your communities who you might know is deployed, have them come in and ask us, because we get a new list every year. And so more people are qualified for this. And it's a really nice benefit, especially for people who are at home having to handle everything else. So the senior citizen exemption, probably one of the more interesting ones, applies to the county, millage, and some of the municipalities. So what is this? This is that you have to be age 65 or older, that it is a low-income senior benefit. Your gross household income must be under a limit that's set every year by the Department of Revenue. We have on here approximately $29,000. It's actually, we just got the number about a month ago. It's for 2018. It's $29,454. So we hit the number fairly close on our slide. And each year, if you are qualified for this, you have to, we send you a form and ask you if your income has remained below that threshold. How much is this worth? It's actually about $100 a year. We have about 15,000 people in the county who qualify for this. So far, we're always trying to tell people about it because we think there's probably a lot more who are qualified. And these are the levies that it affects. And also, those of you who live in the incorporated area, these are some of the cities who it affects. I have to tell you a funny little story. We were trying to find people who were qualified for this a few years ago to make sure they knew about it, because we got a lot of people who would say to us, I didn't know that there was this benefit available. So what we started doing is, we, of course, on a homestead application, we collect everybody's date of birth, which is one of the required fields for homestead. So we know when everybody is turning 65. So now we have the property appraiser, I call it AARP card mailing. And everyone on the January 1st of their 65th birthday, once they turn 65, get a little card from us telling them about this benefit. Because not everybody's eligible because of the income limit. But I had somebody say to me the other day, they said, I really don't like that I got that card from you reminding me that I'm 65, but we like to make sure people know about the benefits. So there's also a long-term senior citizen exemption that has not been adopted by any taxing authority yet in Palm Beach County. This is a local option. Some of these exemptions are local option. And this would be that people who've been in their homes for at least 25 years, and their homes, when they first apply, are worth less than $250,000, would get a additional senior exemption. And again, this was passed in 2012, and we don't yet have it adopted in Palm Beach County. But I tell everybody that because that takes you contacting your county commissioner and suggesting that we consider having it here, and then maybe they will consider voting for it and approving it, and I don't see Commissioner Kerner here anymore, but we can, maybe you can corral him and see if he'd like to champion this idea. There's a quick one for parents and grandparents. We call this the Granny Flats exemption. So if your kids want to build a little room on the side of their home for you to live in, or you know somebody who might be moving into their kid's home, if they build something, it's important, they can't just move in. They've got to actually build something, then the value of what they build is exempt as long as parent and child are homesteaded, and the parent makes that their permanent home. That's a nice benefit. Disabled first responders arrived just last year. Disabled first responder has been around for just a few years, and again, I'm not going to make you read through all this, but effectively, if you are disabled in the line of duty as a first responder, so police, firemen, etc., then you can get an exemption to the degree of your disability, just like that other senior exemption. Surviving spouses of deceased first responders. This is a very, very new exemption, which is for someone who is, this one is the older one, the other one's newer. But this one is if you are obviously the spouse of somebody who dies in the line of duty, then you receive a total exemption from property taxes on your home. Very important about both of these, you have to have been disabled in Florida. We get a lot of people who ask us about these benefits who may have been disabled even in 911 or when they were working, and it's not eligible except for those who are Florida residents. There is actually an effort in the legislature possibly to change that. I'm not sure how successful it's going to be this year. And again, this is surviving spouse of first responders, and not to go through so quickly, just wrapping up, I want to make sure everybody knows that March 1, which I know has passed, we were initially going to speak to you a couple months ago, but March 1, which has now passed, is our first exemption application deadline. However, there is an easy process that extends that deadline all the way out until the middle of September. So again, if you or any of your neighbors may be qualified, do send them in now. We will make sure that they get through the application process for 2018. There's a petition process, and we will walk them through that. And finally, where do you go? Well, you can certainly file on our website for some of these, which is listed there, PAPA, but you can also come to our office. In fact, it's very close to here. It's on Atlantic Avenue and Cumberland. Those of you that remember the old library, we're in the old library building directly across the street, almost across the street from Kings Point, just west of Jog. So you're probably familiar with that area. Come on in anytime, it's never busy, and we're always happy to see you and help you. And Evelyn is in that office, and I know she's there, and she'll be more than happy to help you with any questions you have. So I'm going to end there. I don't know if, Lori, you want me to
Yes, you have people here to answer questions after, a whole lot of them, and this was jam-packed with information. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you very much, everyone, so much for your attention.
Thank you. And we have cards at the tables there. If you have a question, we may have time at the end for a few questions if you do have that. You can write them out and give it to a board member. We have a special guest. Dave Arenberg came in and a little late, our state attorney, Dave Arenberg, and he'd like to just say a few things before we have our speakers. It's always nice to hear from our state attorney.
Thank you. Better late than never. Good morning, Delray. Delray Alliance, it's great to be back. I'm Dave Arenberg, honored to be your state attorney. I just have a couple quick things. I don't know if you saw this past Sunday on To The Point. I did a show with Sheriff Bradshaw. We talked about making Palm Beach County schools as safe as they could possibly be. We have a safe school system, but they could always be safer, and we're looking at everything. The sheriff, as you see, he's having an outside group come in and take a look at their protocols, and I think that's a real positive step. But also, what I'm doing at the state attorney's office is impaneling a grand jury. A grand jury is a group of 21 citizens from throughout the county, chosen at random. They're currently seated right now, and they serve until the end of June. And we're going to present them with evidence and information about our school safety protocols, early warning systems. We're even going to look at gun laws. We're going to look at mental health. We're going to look at everything, school safety officers. We're going to look at hardening our buildings where our kids go to school. And the reason why the grand jury is such a good vehicle to use is because it meets in secret. There is no lobbying. There is no outside money that flows in to try to influence their decisions. And the other reason why they're a really good vehicle for this is because the grand jury has subpoena power. Just like the Mueller grand jury, although we're a local grand jury, our grand jury has subpoena power. We can compel evidence to find out what is really going on, how to make our schools safer, and then the grand jury issues a report at the end of June, and that report will go to our local policymakers here at the county. It will go to the school board police, and it will also go to Tallahassee and Washington, D.C. And I know it's hard to get Tallahassee and D.C. to change their minds on guns, although we have excellent representatives representing us. But I do think it is a step in the right direction when you have a policy statement from a grand jury, which has not been done before. And the final thing I'll leave you with this is we have had a grand jury on another issue. A couple years ago, I impaneled a grand jury on the issue of sober homes and fraud and abuse in the drug treatment industry. And look what happened since they issued their report. We have dramatically cleaned up the drug treatment industry in Palm Beach County. As you've seen, there has been a huge decrease in the number of overdoses in Delray Beach alone from November 2017, from a year ago. So we are going in the right direction. We're making our streets safer. We're getting rid of the rogue sober homes. We're getting rid of the fraudulent drug treatment centers. The problem is they're moving to other communities now. And so I'm traveling to California because the state of California has asked me to come talk to them about doing there what we have done here. So I think it's a real testament to the efforts in Palm Beach County that we're doing something right. We are cleaning up this drug treatment industry, and I'm hoping we can do the same thing for school safety, make it better, and actually deal with the controversial issue of guns. We can't depend on Tallahassee or Washington, D.C. to do it for us. We're going to have to do it here on our own locally. So I want to say thank you, and I would be remiss if I concluded without recognizing my PIO, my executive assistant, Mike Edmondson, who's been with the office now for 22 years. He doesn't look a day over 39. All right. Hey, thank you all, Delray Alliance, for listening. I'm Dave Arenberg, honored to be your state attorney. Thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you. We have a meeting packed with information here. It is so great. He does a fantastic job. And check out his new Facebook page photo. Cookies on it with him is really cute. He's got the most adorable dog, which was a rescue. Right now, we have all our elected officials for this year are now in Tallahassee this month, but luckily, this is our last week of session. Luckily, we have a state legislator here who was a state legislator for 10 years as our representative and then our senator, and she knows a lot about tax advantages for associations and property owners. Florida Senator from 2010 to 2015. She now serves as Executive Director of Innovation Florida, a nonprofit dedicated to working with a variety of partners toward the establishment of an economy in Florida which will make the state an international innovative hub. Please help me welcome Maria Sachs.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Bob Chauvin and Lori Vinegar. You know, this today is a meeting where we can really learn things on how to save money. And that's very, very important. We heard from Dorothy Jacks, who is, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Dorothy Jacks, who is the property appraiser for our community, and she has these specifics on how we can save money, and I think this is very, very important for all of us to take home. So thank you, Bob, thank you, Lori, and thank you, Ms. Jacks, for this. We're going to go into now how we can save even more money, which is always a good thing. We have, you know, energy is so important. There is nothing worse than not to be able to plug in your iPhone. You know, I met a lady, and I'm not gonna point her out, but I met in the bathroom, and she was on her iPhone. And she said, "You know what I'm doing?" I said, "No, what are you doing?" She said, "I'm looking at my great-grandchildren." This is our connection to the world. It's our connection to our family. So we are gluttons for energy. We need it. And the worst thing about hurricanes is not necessarily the wind, which is always bad, but it's after the storm is passed and we don't have any electricity. So we have to find alternative means of electricity. So one of the things I did, and I'm going to say Corey, and every time I say Corey, she's going to change the picture. One of the things I did when I was in Tallahassee is I passed a bill that said that if you use solar panels on a structure, that you will get a property tax savings. Now that bill became a constitutional amendment. Ladies and gentlemen, every time we touch a tax, we have to put it in our Constitution. Not every state is like this, but according to the Florida's Constitution, if you say tax, they say amendment to the Constitution. So it passed overwhelmingly because it was a tax savings for those who want to use energy sources that are not necessarily from plugging your phone in, but using the sun. Do you think we have enough sun here? We do. We are the sunshine state. So by using these renewable sources of energy, we can save money on certain property taxes. And Dorothy Jacks' office will know even more about that when you speak to them after the meeting. What are some of the other things we can do? You are the leaders of your communities. When you go back home, you've got to be able to tell your communities how they can save money. Here are some of the ways they can save money. All right, now these are very simple, and I'm going to go over them quickly because you already know what they are. Some of them you may not know. First of all, Corey, light bulbs. Simple. You save over 70% of energy costs by using those little light bulbs that you get at Home Depot. Little expensive, but they last a lot longer. And they really are efficient. All right, Corey, so 70% savings on electrical alone just by using that. Paperless. Dr. Vinegar told us about how she gets her message out from the Alliance. It's all online. You don't have to worry about printing, distribution, and do you know how much a postage stamp costs today? It's ridiculous. Every time I go there, I've got to buy another one. So it's so much more efficient for HOAs and condos to do it exactly the way the Alliance does it, which is send it out from the internet. Conversion of water heaters to solar. And this is something where you can get a tax credit from the IRS. If all those water heaters are converted, it makes a big difference to get them off of electrical. Energy efficient windows. You know that your insurance costs will go down if you get these energy efficient windows that are also hurricane proof. So you're going to get a rebate from insurance companies. Your insurance companies may even reduce your premiums if you are able to get these. Now here's something that's interesting. It's called recycling. This may be something new to a lot of people. Your community can sell their recyclables and make money from it. There are communities here in this community, in Boca Raton, that already do this. But you have to be careful. No styrofoam. No styrofoam cups. Some communities have banned them altogether, which is probably a good idea. And they use the other type of cups for coffee and tea and other things like this. So you can actually sell and make money for your community organizations by using the right type of materials. The next one is interesting. Now, the next one, many of us grew up on composting. I didn't actually, but maybe my grandparents did. And it's the age-old thing of taking organic waste. What's organic waste? I'll tell you what organic. Anything that was food products that you use at the country club or at a golf club, put it all together and they compost it with dirt, just regular Florida dirt. And they will rake it up ever so often to aerate it. You are producing fertilizer. Fertilizer costs a lot of money for many, many HOAs and country clubs for their golf courses. Fertilizers is one of the highest costs to maintain green golf courses. So one country club alone, and I did a survey, cost them $70,000 in order to remove the waste from their country club. If they had just used that organic waste in composting, they would be able to reuse that compost as fertilizer for their golf course. Many, many already do. It's a simple thing that we can, all of our country clubs and golf courses can save money on. And finally, look at landscaping. I mean, just since the last hurricane, we know what happens when we have trees planted in our area that are non-native. When I looked out the window at that Irma, I could tell just by looking at my backyard which trees were going to make it. And you see those beautiful palm trees, they just bend back and forth and bend. And at the end of it, they're okay. But some of the trees that are non-native, the mahogany trees, some of the acacia trees are native, but some of the other trees are not. Some of the ficus trees are not, and they break. So these are the trees that will do the most damage. If you plant trees that are native, they're going to be able to last in our sandy soil and be able to go through all of the wind. Now, some of the other ways, and I'm going to move quickly here, and Corey, you just go ahead. Cable and internet, when it comes down to negotiating bulk contracts. Let me tell you something. We had a big war with the homeowners associations wanting to take care of people who didn't pay their dues. This is a couple of years ago in the legislature. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to get the cable companies to help out. So you know that if you live in a condo association, that if you negotiate a contract with the cable companies, you can get a bulk contract for the entire organization, for every homeowner there. What we wanted to do is those who didn't pay, we'd turn off the cable right before the Super Bowl or something. But we didn't do that because I thought that was kind of cruel. Most people went ahead and paid. But these are ways that you can save money, and save money for your residents. And let me tell you something, folks, they'll negotiate with you. They would love to be able to provide these contracts to you at a bulk rate. So make sure you know that. And the next one, you contact Energy, you contact FP&L, and they will make an audit free of your association. The number's on the next one, there you go. It's basically 1-800-DIAL-FPL. And you get a live person, I learned it myself. You get a live person on the other end, and they'll come out and they'll completely audit your place on how you can save money. Now the next group is sources of renewable energy. I'm going to go over them very quickly. The next one is solar energy. As you know, we got more sun here than any place in the world. But you know which country produces more solar energy than any other place? Germany. Why? Because they have the technology, folks. We in this country need to get smart and use our technology to produce energy from the freest source of energy known to man, and that's the sun. So hopefully, between the bill that I passed and Dorothy Jacks and others here, we can make sure that we don't have to plug into FP&L every time we want to get energy, that we can use the stored energy from the sun and store it in panels so that we can use it over and over again for our energy sources. Biomass is another one. Biomass, the sugar producers here in Palm Beach County, when they burn sugar, if you ever want to see an amazing thing to drive out to the western parts of our county, and you can see these huge burns, that what they do is they burn the biomass from the sugar and they produce energy. They don't use FP&L. The entire cities out there are completely covered by the energy they produce from biomass. And we will be doing it one day. Wind energy is the next one. Many of you who grew up on farms, or your grandparents or parents grew up, this is the oldest source of energy known to man. It's old windmills. They want to use it here in in Florida. I have always been a little bit leery of this, I'll tell you frankly, because the biggest killer of birds is these huge wind turbines. And if you ever go to a state that has them, what you'll see on the ground is a whole mass of dead birds. Because these things go around, they emit a tiny sound that attracts birds. The birds fly into them and they're dead. So I've always been a little leery about wanting to go forward with this type of energy because it's so big. If you've ever been to Southern California and the beaches, you'll see these wind turbines out on the ocean. So I'm not really that excited about it. The next one I am excited about it, and that's ocean energy. Now, real quickly, and I know Lori's looking at me and she wants to pull me off, thinking I shouldn't have a cane. But right here in Florida, we have the Gulf Stream. If any of you have been going from Fort Lauderdale or Palm Beach to the Bahamas, you go over the Gulf Stream. It's a current of water that runs right up into the northeast. That current has a lot of energy. So down in Dania, and I took the Blue Ribbon Committee down there once, down in Dania they have these turbines underneath the ocean, pulls the energy from all these waves and produces electricity. So there's all different kinds. I'm going to end it here, because I know that you know that there are many different ways that we can save money in our condos and HOAs. And if it wasn't for this organization, some of these things wouldn't even be known. So I want to thank you for this time, and I'm going to get a quick plug. On March 24th, as you know, there is the big march in Washington for the Parkland students. A lot of students wanted to go there, a lot of families were upset that they couldn't go to Washington. We're going to have our own march, and you'll get notice of it. It's going to be right here in Boca Raton, South Palm Beach County. We're going to all congregate on March 24th. And you'll get notice of it. It's going to be in front of City Hall, Boca Raton City Hall. We're going to march to Meisner Amphitheater. And it's going to be in solidarity with the students to let everybody know that we in South Palm Beach County feel the need, that they have suffered so much and that they will not suffer again, never again. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. We can take a few questions. Did anybody fill out a card? We still have Dorothy Jacks here. And if there is a particular question, hand me the card and we can take a few minutes of questions. Otherwise, our speakers are still here right after the meeting. So you can just go right up to our speakers and ask the questions. Well, remember about the expo. It's going to be fantastic. You're going to have a lot of fun, and there's all sorts of. There'll be movies, there'll be popcorn, there'll be 60 vendors to look at, to speak to, lots of giveaways. Come March 28th, 9 to 2. And next month we'll see you. We'll have Sharon Mock here, our clerk and comptroller, and we'll have a great program next month. Remember, if you have any issues with receiving the emails, provide me with your email address along with your name and the community that you belong to, and we'll get you on the email list. See you next month.